Welcome back. In this week's episode, we discuss the Twitter files, Sam Bankman-Fried getting arrested over the FTX scandal, and we discuss the dystopian future of ecto life, the first artificial womb. I am Luke.
And I'm Rhodey.
And this is the Right Side of the Compass podcast. So, Rhodey, did you hear about who won the World Cup?
Yes, I did. I watched part of the game. It was interesting.
Oh no, I think I'm gonna have to. Unbelievable. You watched the World Cup?
I watched a little bit of it. My roommates were watching it, so I was just around
If your
and I was
roommates were
watching.
jumping off a cliff, would you join them?
I mean, I wasn't necessarily like watching, but I was like around so I could hear what's happening. So like if I see them jumping off a bridge, I mean like I see them jumping off a bridge. It doesn't necessarily mean I'll join them.
You should, if they're the type of people that jump off a bridge or watch soccer, you should not only not jump off the bridge, you should push them off the bridge.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to go for the whole, like, Argentina may have won the World Cup, but we as humanity lost the World Cup for having participated in the World Cup.
Oh,
But
really?
yes, we as
Why do you say
humanity
that?
lost. Because soccer is a terrible sport for poor people. Whenever I see someone playing soccer, I tell them, stop being poor. Anyways, so it's just a disgraceful, honestly, sport. I can't believe people
Are
watch
you
that
just
sport.
saying that because you're bad at it
No,
and
I'm
you don't have
saying
the
it because it's
stamina for it?
no. I'm saying it because it's a terrible sport, and that there are other better non-soccer sports that are better both for playing and for watching.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, I disagree, but all right.
Listen, and Rhodey, like I said, you're free to be wrong, but I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna have to find a new co-host, someone who agrees with me on soccer. I don't know that your position you're taking is very immoral. In any case, so before we continue, I'd like to say to the audience, thank you for tuning in to the Right Side of the Compass podcast. We love having you on with us at the show. However, we do need your help. We need you to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. In addition, you can comment on the video and you could reach out to us, and you could also hit the notification button to make sure that YouTube tells you when we're out with new videos. You could also listen to us on Spotify, Apple, Google, anywhere where your favorite podcasts are at. We worked very hard on this episode and we hope you enjoy. Okay, so let's talk first about the Twitter files. So ever since Elon Musk bought Twitter, we've been graced with new and amazing revelations about what was going on at the company every single day. And I, for one, I'm here for all of that. I love every moment of the Twitter files. It's such a aha moment. Like, we knew it. We knew what was going on at Twitter, and we just needed someone to confirm the details. And that's really what we've been getting with the Twitter files.
Uh-huh. So would you like to like elaborate for people who don't know like what that kind of is about?
So, okay, so for a while, conservatives knew that Twitter was bottlenecking conservative voices, and they were amplifying left-wing opinions that served the government's purposes. And Twitter was denying it constantly, but we find that that's just not true. So, for example, we found that after Elon Musk sent Twitter files to Matt Taibbi, who's a journalist, a left-wing journalist who kind of walked off the reservation. So he's still left-wing, but he's not woke, as it were. He's classically left-wing. And so he was he kind of leaked a bunch of Twitter stuff the Twitter files. Let's go to Matt Taibbi's Twitter um, Twitter leaks. Okay. Um, right. So let's go to Matt Taibbi. Anyways, so I'm on his Twitter page right now. I'm just not now. Thread 1, the Twitter files. This is Matt Taibbi's. This is what Elon Musk sent to Matt Taibbi, and Matt Taibbi looked through all these documents, and he made this Twitter thread. As now I'm using my official Luke Twitter account for the Right Side of the Compass podcast to do this. So thank you. The Twitter files. This is what it says. What you're about to read is the first installment in a series based upon thousands of internal documents obtained by sources at Twitter. The Twitter files tell an incredible story from inside one of the world's largest and most influential social media platforms. It is a Frankensteinian tale of a human-built mechanism grown out of the control of its designer, who is Jack Dorsey. Twitter, in its conception, was a brilliant tool for enabling instant mass communication, making a true real-time global conversation possible for the first time. In an earlier conception, Twitter more than lived up to its mission statement, giving people the power to create and share ideas and information instantly without barriers. As time progressed, however, the company was slowly forced to add those barriers. Some of the first tools for controlling speech were designed to combat the likes of spam and financial fraudsters. I think that makes sense. The first thing that people often complain about is that there's just so much junk. So yeah, it makes sense that they would come up with these systems to get rid of spam and fraud, and that's good. Slowly over time, Twitter staff and executives began to find more and more uses for these tools. Outsiders began petitioning the company to manipulate speech as well, first a little, then more often, then constantly. By 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from the Biden team. The reply would come back handled. So that means that Joe Biden, or not Joe Biden himself, but like people from his team were telling people at Twitter to like go over things at Twitter, right? And they would deal with consequential tweets. Celebrities and unknowns alike could be removed or reviewed at the behest of a political party. Both parties had access to these tools. For instance, in 2020, requests from both the Trump White House and the Biden campaign were received and honored. However, the system wasn't balanced. It was based on contacts. Because Twitter was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation, there were more channels, more ways to complain, open to the left, well, Democrats, than the right. The resulting slant in content moderation decisions is visible in the documents you're about to read. However, it's also the assessment of multiple current and former high-level executives. Okay, there were more throat clearing about the process, but screw it, let's jump forward. The Twitter files, part 1, how and why Twitter blocked the Hunter Biden laptop story. On October 14th, 2020, the New York Post published Biden's secret emails, an expose based on the content. Yeah. I think we spoke about that.
Yeah, when it first came out.
Yeah, that was nuts. The Post published Biden's secret emails, an expose based on the contents of Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop. Twitter took extraordinary steps to suppress the story, removing links and posting warnings that it may be unsafe. They even blocked its transmission via direct message, a tool hitherto reserved for extreme cases, e.g. child pornography. Which, by the way, only when Elon Musk took over Twitter did they really crack down on the child porn, I might add. White House spokeswoman Kayleigh McEnany was locked out of her account for tweeting about the story, prompting a furious letter from Trump campaign staffer Mike Hahn, who seethed, "At least pretend to care for the next 20 days." This led public policy executive Caroline Strom to send out a polite WTF query. Several employees noted that there was tension between the comms policy teams, who had little less control over moderation, and the safety trust teams. The safety trust teams are the people like the HR people who are, constantly telling people what to say. Strom's note returned the answer from the laptop story had been removed for violation of the company's hacked materials policy. Although several sources recalled hearing about a general warning from federal law enforcement that summer about possible foreign hacks, there's no evidence that I've seen of any government involvement in the laptop story. In fact, that might have been the problem. The decision was made at the highest level of the company, but without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey, with former head of legal, policy, and trust Vijaya Gaddy playing a key role. He just freelanced it, is how one former employee characterized the decision. Hacking was the excuse, but within a few hours, pretty much everyone realized that wasn't going to hold, but no one had the guts to reverse it. You can see the confusion in the following lengthy exchange, which ends up including Gaddy and former Trust and Safety Chief Yoel Roth. Comms official Trenton Kennedy writes, I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for marking this as unsafe. By this point, everyone knew this was effed, said one former employee, but the response was essentially to err on the side of continuing to err. Former VP of Global Comms Brandon Borman asks, can we truthfully claim that this is part of the policy? To which former Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker again seems to advise staying the non-course because caution is warranted. Keep note of the name Jim Baker. That's a very important name, so be keep this aware. Blah blah blah. Fun. Okay. In one humorous exchange on day one, Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna reaches out to Gaddy to gently suggest she hop on the phone to talk about the backlash RE speech. Khanna was the only Democrat official I could find in the files who expressed concern. Blah blah blah. First Amendment. Blah blah blah. Seems there's more.
So I think we got, what it's all about. So like basically it's somewhat like, I wouldn't say it's like Watergate, but it's like
I mean,
it's just it's blatant how do I explain it? It's blatant manipulation, I guess.
well, okay. So I mean, yes and no. What people have to understand is that there isn't going to be. I heard it explained this way. There isn't going to be a smoking gun. I think it was Mike Cernovich who said there isn't going to be a smoking gun, right? Because they're not that stupid, right? The government knows that if the FBI were to say, "Oh, Twitter, you need to delete this tweet," right? Then that would be a violation of the First Amendment, right? So
Yes.
they're not interested in doing that. What they do is they go up to people who already know they agree with and they monitor the internet and then they say, oh, you see this, you should check that out. And then they understand the people working at these companies. They go, oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I deleted that. That's not okay. That's kind of the issue with this. There is no smoking gun, right? But the point is that this shows that there were that the Biden administration, the left wing, broadly speaking, had access to Twitter, and they were using the moderation at Twitter to censor things that they didn't like. Which if you believe in free speech, technically nothing violated the First Amendment, strictly speaking. But in terms of having free speech as a broad political value, this is a violation of that value.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyways, after that, Elon Musk sent some stuff to journalist Barry Weiss. And like I said, remember James Baker, because that's a very, very important thing.
Okay.
Where does
Why?
it say? In this Daily Wire article, Taibbi failed to mention in his initial release that Baker was the former FBI general counsel involved in Russia-related investigation into former President Donald Trump. That means when the Democrats were yelling and screaming about how Donald Trump was a Russian puppet, and that turned out not to be true, James Baker was involved in that. And then he got fired from the government, and then he started working at Twitter. And what happened was
Really?
is that
Wow.
yeah. But get this. James Baker was responsible for vetting the Twitter files that Elon Musk sent to Matt Taibbi. That's why the FBI wasn't involved in any of the first Twitter things, right?
Wait, can
Anyways,
you repeat that?
James Baker, who was working for the FBI during
Yeah.
right, he started working at Twitter. And
Yeah.
then James Baker was going over the files, the Twitter files that Elon
Yeah.
Musk gave to Matt Taibbi, and he was scrubbing them of like really blatant stuff.
Oh wow.
So the next installment of the Twitter files was supposed to happen over the weekend, but became delayed for a reason that was unknown at the time. Taibbi now says that the reason for the delay was that it was discovered that Baker was responsible for vetting the files that were released to him and journalist Barry Weiss. Right? This is the process for producing the Twitter files involved delivering to two journalists, Barry Weiss and me, via a lawyer close to new management. However, after the initial batch, things became complicated, Taibbi said. Over the weekend, while we both dealt with obstacles to new searches, it was at Barry Weiss who discovered that the person in charge of releasing the files was someone named Jim. When she called to ask Jim's last name, the answer came back, Jim Baker. And then Matt Taibbi tweets, quote, my jaw hit the floor, unquote, says Weiss. Baker is a controversial figure. He has been something of a zealot of FBI controversies dating back to 2016, from the Steele dossier to the Alpha server mess. He resigned in 2018 after an investigation into leaks to the press. Taibbi continued, the news that Baker was reviewing the Twitter files surprised everyone involved, to say the least. New Twitter chief Elon Musk acted quickly to exit Baker Tuesday. That's nuts. That's nuts. Can you imagine? Wow.
Can I imagine? I guess. Yeah. Wow. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's like, man, the conspiracy theories are just on point right now. Like they really are.
Oh God.
But that's the thing I think people need to start realizing about the government. There isn't this neat distinction, and Michael Knowles makes this all the time. There isn't this neat distinction between the public sector and the private sector, right? So a lot of people point out, rightfully so, I think, that, you know, people will leave the government and will go into the private sector, but they'll still have their contacts in the public sector. And
Yeah.
private companies will pay lots of money to have these private sector workers who have contacts in the public sector, and vice versa, I might add, right?
Yeah. Like for example, like if you like, it's valuable if you worked for the SEC. So like big banks would like find value in that you actually worked for, these government offices.
Right, because you can talk to people in there and get certain processes expedited, right? So this is a very interesting kind of look at how that works, right? And I think once
Yeah,
people
because
yeah,
yeah, and I was gonna say because in the end of the day, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Yeah,
exactly. But I think I think this is like it's almost too blatant. I think the corruption here is a bit too obvious. It's kind of nuts.
yeah. Well, what do you think's gonna happen?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, because the reality is that a lot of these people that were responsible for this already left Twitter, right? So I don't think there's going to be any negative results for Twitter, because you can't really sue Elon Musk. Elon Musk wasn't responsible for this, right? But can you sue like Vijaya Gaddy? Can you sue Yoel Roth? I don't know.
Maybe.
I have a feeling that's not the case. If anything's going to happen, I think these kind of leaks might cause, if we ever get a right-wing government again, I think a right-wing government will kind of look into these things, and they might legislate something against these kind of things, or they might put more rules on content moderation on the internet.
uh, well, I mean they can because the internet is a free place.
No, you can. First of all, the internet is supposed to be a free place, but there are things that you can and can't do on the internet. The fact that you have to use a VPN to find certain content on Netflix or whatever tells me that there are rules to the internet, right? There are rules. It's not the Wild West anymore. And I think, by the way, if the government said, okay, so if a company like Twitter or Facebook decides to censor you and they can't prove that what you said was against the law, you can what's it called? you could sue them, or they might say they have to release their algorithms to the public so that people can see how they're not only moderating content, but also
Censoring.
no, not just censoring, but also how they're showing priority and kind of banning content, right? So, for example, Facebook, it used to be when Facebook first came out, I'm old enough to remember, when you would look at your news feed, I don't even know if it was called that at the time, but it was literally just the newest thing was at the top and the oldest thing was at the bottom, and you saw what all of your friends were saying in reverse chronological order, right? So you saw the last thing first, and then the right, and then they started with all these algorithms where they kind of tried to funnel you into the things that you liked and tried to get you away from the things that you didn't like.
Yes,
Right?
that's true.
They would bump content up that was more interesting. Um, and I can understand why people would want to do that, but they should at least have to demonstrate. They should at least have to show. They should have to be open about it, right? And I think this might be the smoking gun, as it were. I don't think that there's going to be a crime necessarily, but I think that we're going to see something happening. But I think it's important to, as who said this? I don't remember. Someone said that Elon Musk didn't spend $44 billion on Twitter. He spent $44 billion on a crime scene. So he's now going over the evidence here, which is good because I don't think anyone else would do it.
Yeah, it's funny because the CEO before Elon Musk said that, oh, we do have freedom of speech. They just, you can say what you want. It's just a matter of whether you're going to be heard or not.
Well, I mean, Jack Dorsey wasn't exactly the
No,
most.
not Jack Dorsey. The guy after Jack Dorsey, who was
Who's
like
the guy
really
after?
anti. I don't know. It was this. I think Indian guy who was really anti freedom of speech.
Mm, well, I mean, it was just that just wasn't true. There were lots of things you couldn't say on Twitter. There's just the reality. Like there are still things you can't say on Twitter, as we see with Elon Musk banning all these journos, which I'm very happy about. I think it's great that Elon Musk is banning all these journos, but he's banning a bunch of people for doxing him, and we're seeing that you can't just say whatever you want on the internet. You just can't do that. There are rules to the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna see. This is how it's gonna go. Anyways, let's talk about our next story. Let's talk about uh, Sam Bankman-Fried.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, so Sam Bankman-Fried, last I recall, he was living in, I believe it was the Caribbeans or the Bahamas or
No,
something.
so basically, I guess a recap on what's been happening is Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF. So is that what the
SBF.
people is that what people call him?
I have no
Uh,
idea.
Sam Bankman-Fried. Yeah. Um, and essentially, basically, there was not a scandal, but there was some fraud with his crypto um, um, exchange company and hedge fund. He
Can
had
you can you
two
describe it? Can you describe what was going on?
um essentially he was using the funds that basically when people would give the company money for the exchange, he would take those funds and use it for something else. um and then essentially I'm just giving a very like abridged version. Basically, he would then funnel it through his own like cryptocurrency, which was FTX. And then it went to his parent company, which was a hedge fund, which they would then invest it in other things, as well as use it for other things. And so people started requesting, when things started to get bad with crypto and people started requesting their money back, he didn't have it. So like he couldn't give the money back. Um, or like
Right.
he just couldn't give the money back like right away. Like it wasn't so liquid. you know. So that's basically what happened, and then he had to like file bankruptcy and stuff like that. And then now he's in the Bahamas, and that's also where the company was located in the Bahamas. And the US requested that that they arrest him for the US. He was going to appear in front of Congress, or is it the Senate? Um,
No, Congress.
he was going to appear in front of Congress, but only through video, not in person. And then now
Can you
they
can you
just
imagine?
arrested.
Can you imagine? Like, to me, it's such chutzpah that you can go into like the Capitol building. You could be led into the Capitol building, like a little old grandma could be led into the Capitol building for and be, put in solitary confinement for a little, drunk and disorderly, essentially, right? But someone who defrauded billions and billions of dollars committed fraud on levels that we don't even know, and this person was only now arrested.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
so it says here, FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried has been arrested by authorities in Bahamas. The latest dramatic turn in spectacular scandal that has rocked the crypto world. Um, the U.S. attorney confirmed the arrest of the 30-year-old former billionaire and political mega donor on a tweet. Um, yeah, and yeah, so he's supposed to testify, but now it's going to be like in person, and he's supposed to be facing up to um, a lot of years in prison. I'm just putting it very nicely. um,
I sure
but
hope so.
it's and it was funny. I was listening to uh, to a video, and essentially they were comparing him to Madoff, and how it was similar. I mean, obviously there are differences in terms of the demographics and in terms of what in terms of the demographics and in terms of the type of security. So, like for example, Madoff, he was dealing with stocks and actual like equity and securities, which has way more regulations and laws that you have to deal with. Um, Also, he was doing it for decades, not a few years, while Mr. Freed, he was only maybe doing it for a few years. His demographic was, well, Madoff's demographic was more like union workers, regular people like you and me, retirement funds, regular people, while, you know, the crypto world is usually full of more tech savvy, young, hip, cool, crypto investors. So,
Right.
but like in the end of the day, fraud is fraud, and that's what kind of
Yeah,
matters in the
I
end.
don't think it justifies the fraud just because the kids are young. I think there's something to be said about someone taking advantage of like the Wild West and doing things that are unethical like this. I think that defraud.
Yeah.
I just don't know what rules are they gonna throw. How are they gonna throw the book at him exactly? Or are they gonna
Well,
use regular fraud?
it's hard because that's the thing. There's no it's not really regulated. That's the thing. But it says here, federal prosecutors from Southern District of New York charged Bankman-Fried with 8 counts of fraud and conspiracy. Bankman-Fried could face up to 115 years in prison if convicted on all 8 counts against him, though he likely wouldn't get the maximum sentence. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
So, but do you think it's right that the U.S. requested the Bahamas to arrest him?
of course. Of course,
Yeah.
without a doubt. Yeah, of course. My only question is whether where he's gonna make it to Congress, or we're gonna have another situation of Sam Bankman-Fried didn't kill himself. Like the whole, is he gonna be the new Jeffrey Epstein?
Nah, I don't think so.
Ah,
Because that's like
that means you don't have enough
Jeffrey Epstein was.
imagination.
No, that's a whole other level though. This is
You don't.
like it's okay. Like, it's one thing to do like fraud and everything; it'll destroy his career. But like the thing is about like Epstein is like if it could destroy any big power people's entire life. That's how wrong it was.
No, but I think here's what I think. I think we're gonna if we there are people that are saying that essentially the Democrats were using FTX to funnel government money into
Oh,
the pockets of the Democrat Party because essentially what was going on. This is I hear talk. I don't know. Again, I'm not a journalist. I don't understand quite how this would happen. But essentially, the government was sending aid to Ukraine, right? And then if the Ukrainians were investing in FTX, right, and then the FTX is donating to the Democrat Party,
yeah,
then that would be like essentially they're taking our tax dollars and literally funneling it into the Democrat Party.
yeah. Like here it says here, this is a CNN business. Prosecutors allege Bankman-Fried conspired with others on numerous schemes, including misusing customers' deposits held in FTX that were used to cover the expenses of Alameda Bankman-Fried's hedge fund, which is his sister company. Bankman-Fried also
Also
allegedly defrauded.
run by his paramour, but I might
Yeah, Bankman-Fried also allegedly defrauded leaders to Alameda by providing them misleading information about the hedge fund's financial condition. The 14-page indictment also alleges that Bankman-Fried conspired with others to violate federal election laws by making political donations to candidates and fundraising committees between 2020 and November 2022 in excess of federal legal limits and in the names of other people. So that's interesting.
yeah, I think what was it? Sam Bankman-Fried was the number 2 donor to Democrats, only being surpassed by George Soros.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, so this is corruption, the likes of which we haven't seen so much before. So, but the point is that it took. What makes me angry is that you have these little people who broke into the Capitol building, and they're having the book thrown at them. And what we have for this guy is he gets to go around living in the Bahamas until the U.S. government politely asks the Bahamas to arrest him, which unbelievable.
Yeah. So that's that.
Anyways, let's talk about the third thing because I think the third thing, the first two things were pretty shocking. I think if the theme of this episode, if there's a theme to this episode, it's shock. And yeah, the third thing I think is even more shocking than the last two things.
Yeah. Sorry. What were you saying?
I said the first two things compared to the new. Give me a second. Let's reconnect the phones.
Yeah.
Well, mute your phone.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So let's start from the top. If there is a theme to this episode today, I think the theme would be things that are shocking and horrifying, right? So the first thing was the Twitter files, and the second thing was the Sam Bankman-Fried. But I think the third thing is even more
You're gonna
shocking
give me
because
nightmares tonight.
yes, I know. I'm on this Hanukkah. We're very very shocked. Anyways, so we're looking at this. Thing, I suppose. I saw this video. A bunch of people are talking about it, and because I lack originality and I lack any sort of creativity, I thought I want to talk about this video too and make the same points. So let's talk about ecto life.
All right. Would you like to explain what that is?
Okay, so ecto life. I saw this video, this proof of concept video about this company called Ecto Life, and what it does is essentially, like that movie Gattaca.
Yeah, I was actually gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
That's what
So
it really
that's
reminded me of it.
so most people when they saw the movie Gattaca, they're like, "Oh, that's a dystopian movie. We shouldn't do that." And these guys looked at the movie Gattaca and like, sounds like a great idea. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Anyways, so this is the world's first artificial womb facility. Do they have artificial wombs nowadays, or
No, they don't. First of all, it's very, I mean, the video is very CGI, okay? So it's definitely still concept. It's not real at
no?
all
Of course,
yet.
yeah. It needs to be stressed that this isn't real yet. Although I kind
And
of want to stay that way.
the technology might not even be here for like decades. It's it seems like this is all just concept.
Right.
Um,
It is all just concept, but I think that number one, it's all just concept until it's not, right? Right? Like it's very easy to say, like dismiss it as, oh, this is just concept. But I think the problem is that this is what people kind of want to get to. Like we already see certain things that people do nowadays that kind of look like this in some way, right? And then we can of course compare it to certain things, but let's first talk about what this is, right? So what it is essentially it's a facility that's powered by renewable energy, so it's going to be powered by wind and solar, which means I don't know what that means. As we all know, wind and solar don't actually work, but whatever. It's powered by renewable energy, and it's basically a place where you can order a baby to be manufactured, which, because I can't think of a better word, right? This is a place where you can order a baby to be manufactured for you and grown
ooh,
outside.
sorry, you know what it
What?
also reminds me of? Did you see
What?
the movie Storks?
No, I didn't.
Oh, like you know, like the baby with the stork.
Yeah, yeah. No, yes, I know about that, Rhodey.
Okay, so
Yes.
they had a movie about it where it's like you know it's a business, you know, for the storks, and they have this whole machine that like makes babies, and then the storks go and like deliver
But I
like
think that is
different.
that like a horror movie? Is that like a dystopian movie, or is it
No,
just a
it's an
comedy?
animated movie. No,
Oh, okay,
basically
but
like
that's not the same. That's not the same. This reminds me more of Gattaca in this how it's like kind of very horrifying.
yeah, no, you're right. But actually, some of the technology does exist. Like, for example, in the video, they were talking about, you know, gene manipulation, and that does exist already. Like, for example, with Jews, they have, you know, like the Tay-Sachs disease that like Ashkenazim Jews have.
Those
So
Ashkenazi Jews.
they have I believe. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they do have treatments to like get rid of certain genetic diseases, which is incredible.
I
Um,
mean, I would love to see how that works because I'm very much in the camp of we shouldn't be screwing around like with people's genes. I'm very much in that like
I think to an extent, like, like in the video, they were talking about like, okay, they would be it would be for countries that have problems like having babies or people who like their wombs are kind of like messed up. Like it would be for like. Now here's the thing, like every new technology usually has good intentions. Now, whether it's abused or not is another story.
well, I mean,
Now,
yeah, but here's the thing. It's I understand that it's very okay. First of all, let's talk about what it is, and then we could talk about the moral implications of it,
okay, fine.
because I have a lot to say about that. But I think that first we need to talk about what it is, and then we can kind of have that conversation. So it's going to be artificial wombs, right? And these babies are grown inside these pods that you can see. Now, first of all, just like on the face of it, I don't really want to see that. Like, I think that's kind of gross. Um,
Yeah,
like it's like one thing to see an image like on a screen from I don't know maybe what was it called the what's that thing where you take your wife to the doctor and they look at her tummy and
ultrasound.
ultrasound. There we go, ultrasound. See that's I wouldn't know that because I'm not married, but yes, you take her to the
Me
ultrasound. It's
too.
one thing, but it's like it's very weird and dystopian to kind of see like a lab full of these babies. You know, like many times in like these sci-fi movies, you see like these creatures that are being cloned in, you know, these like tubes.
Yeah,
It's kind of like what, yeah, yeah. And they're saying that they try to recreate the
the
conditions that
environment.
the environment that a baby will have in the womb. Just as an aside, I generally don't believe that humans can fully recreate biological phenomenon.
Of course, it's not going to be perfect, but you could try to make it as close as possible.
You can, but when it comes to things like this, it's like, well, don't waste your time doing that and don't do it. Like, you understand that there's a problem with doing this. That it's like, because if let's say, just as an aside, right, like there are certain things that they didn't, that I guess because it's a proof of concept, that's not like an issue yet, but it talks about like how it like there's they imitate certain things, but I've noticed that the ecto life pods were entirely stable, and actually it is the mother moving around that helps the baby's inner ear develop, which helps them balance. So we don't even know if babies produced like this will be able to stand up straight.
Really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah. They may need to be on some gyroscope and be artificially, like tossed and turned.
That's interesting. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I didn't know about it either, but apparently that's a thing. Which brings me to my point. There are things that we as humans think we can do as biology, but there is a concept of not playing God, and this is kind of
Well,
this
also,
is
I think it also just kind of just takes away the human aspect of it. Like,
So I was going to get to that part because before, right, like women would sacrifice a lot for their children, childbirth, things like that. And yes, it's tough and I get it, but that was also what made men interested in women, right? Like I think these people are going to try to make it easier on women, but what these people are actually doing is cutting women out of the equation altogether for bad,
yeah,
right? Because now
yeah.
I don't need to get married. I could just hire a company to breed me a child, right? And I don't have to support some woman. Why?
That's very interesting.
Why go and support a woman and be a loving husband when I can order a test tube baby for lots of money?
That's true.
Right? So this is actually going to be a problem for women because this is going to turn women. Women are going to have to work. What if this makes women less feminist and more? What if this? Okay, I'm beginning to think that I like this now. I'm beginning to think
Wow.
that.
Wow.
Wait a minute. I just figured out this is awesome. if
Wow.
women realize, if women realize that we could just replace them with the snap of a finger in a scientific lab, I think women all of a sudden will become really, really submissive and really,
Well,
really
it could
feminine
be
all of a
the
sudden.
opposite also. Women could feel the same way. They'll be like, "Oh, why get married to a man when I can just?" Because usually women want babies more than men.
I don't know if that's the case. I actually don't know if that's the case. I think women like the concept of having a baby more than men do. But I think when push comes to shove, I think women don't want the kids in the same way that the men want them. Because I think what women want is for someone to be there when they're older, right? But I think men want someone to
A
continue their
legacy.
legacy.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's much more important to a man than, I don't know, having like a small child. Like, because women typically, when they can't have children or when they don't want children, they'll typically replace having kids with having like a dog or 12 cats or whatever it is, right? Men might get a dog, but they won't get a dog for the same reason that a woman will get a dog. And if a man then wants a child, it's because he wants someone to pass the legacy on to. So I actually have a feeling that this is more of a market for men, especially men who can't get a woman.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, it seems like that this concept is more for people who are having issues with giving birth and not the just out of convenience aspect of things. It might get to that point, maybe, but like it might just not. It
Right,
might
but
just be like,
Right, but then you have to ask the question, to what extent do we want everyone to have a designer baby when we could just tell those people, okay, adopt, right? People should, I think they're like, I'm not
Because
like,
people want
okay,
to be their blood. They want it to be theirs. Yeah, you can adopt, but it's not the same.
I mean, I think first of all, there are a lot of people who would beg to disagree, would beg to differ, but I think also it doesn't really matter. There are certain things that we shouldn't be doing because of the ethical ramifications of it. The ethical
Hmm.
ramifications are too great for us to just simply say, "Oh, well, at least that woman can have biological children." Okay, I still don't want this to exist. I still want men and women to get together and have kids. So if that means that a woman without a uterus will have to suffer not having a uterus, that's a
Yeah.
sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Or you know what also reminds me? Have you seen the movie or read the book slash The Giver?
The Giver. I mean, I read it. I don't remember, but yeah, I did.
Yeah. So like it was the same concept where like oh like you're like they give birth, but like the child is not like theirs. They're like given to a family, but like people are given jobs of like giving birth, and that's their job. And then that baby is not theirs. It's like given to another family.
Right, but that's the
Um,
issue kind of with in vitro fertilization. Especially, there was a story recently that like the world's oldest twins were just born, and they were the world's oldest twins because they were in cryogenic stasis as embryos for 30 years.
what?
Yeah,
That's disgusting.
right. And that's the problem with IVF. You can take what is essentially a fertilized egg, right? Just throw it in a freezer somewhere. And obviously I'm oversimplifying it. There's going to be some nerd in the comment section that goes, "Oh, no, you don't understand what we do when we freeze the thing." No, no, shut up. You're freezing it. I'm just using Saxon words. And you're freezing the eggs, and then you're taking them out when it's convenient for some, spinster to have a child. Why don't you just get
Yeah.
married and have kids when it's expected of you to do that? Why gallivant across the planet and then spend thousands of dollars on what is possibly the most unethical business on the planet so that you can
Yeah.
have all these experiences that people typically didn't have?
Hmm. You know what also might be like, well, I was just thinking about it. What might be appealing, at least to women, is that by doing this, it also takes out like the pregnancy like process, like those 9 months of like being annoying and actually giving birth. It takes that out of the equation. So like they essentially get a baby without the discomfort of giving birth.
But I don't think that's appropriate. I think that pregnancy is a thing that women endure, and that's part of their service. I don't think we should be looking for ways to make life so comfortable for everyone that no one needs to suffer ever. Suffering builds character. It's good for you. It's a thing women do. Just like men, men should go to work and work for their families. And yes, men should have to go to war and be killed if necessary for their country. I don't think trying to figure out new and creative ways to prevent this from happening, I don't think that's a good idea. Plus, by the way, I might add that sex and having the woman getting pregnant, like, you know how many things a husband does for a wife when she's pregnant, and that's part of the relationship, right? Imagine all of a sudden I don't ever have to do anything for my wife when she's pregnant. Slowly but surely, you're taking the reason for the relationship existing out of the equation. It's good for men to do things for their wives when their wives are pregnant. And it's good for women to be pregnant and receive those good things from their husbands. And it's good for women to be connected to their babies via pregnancy. It is not good for women to have a baby that they have access to on a smartphone, and they're more attached to the phones. You notice how like the women were all on their smartphones looking at the baby and sending, like, it's like
Yeah.
you're turning your pregnancy into social media. It's another
Wow.
reason to be on Facebook. It's another reason to be on Twitter. Oh, look at me, look at my baby, it's on Twitter now. Like, have the baby and don't put it on Twitter.
And then like they give
Incredible.
you a vest that you could like feel the kick and then like share it with your friends.
Just
It's-
just be pregnant and feel the kick when the baby kicks you. Just do that. You could do that for a fraction of the cost.
uh,
Yeah, no, that's nuts. This is nuts. And by the way, the craziest thing, if you want, they can just take your kid that's growing in the pod and they could put it in your apartment.
that's kind of like weird because then I'm just like I'm waking up, going outside, and I just see like a pod with a fetus inside. It's like, yeah, I like waking up to that. I like waking up to that every morning.
Yeah, imagine like my wife doesn't want to sleep with me anymore because she doesn't want me to get her pregnant. So I'm just essentially a cuddle buddy, right? And next to her bed, or my bed, even worse, is this alien fetus growing in a pod next to me. I live in an apartment in a big city that smells like sour milk. I don't own much, but there's a human growing inside our room for some reason, but not inside my wife. The baby's growing inside the room.
Well, I thought
And
it
it's
would
just
be in this facility, not in a
no,
room.
but then they said like, "Oh, you can pay extra and they'll bring it to your house." Which by the way, they called your zone, by the way. They called it your zone. It can be in your zone. It's like,
Wow.
why use that word? Why use that word? It's
Why
so
like why dehumanize it? I think that's the biggest thing is dehumanizing it.
well, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to scientifically so that there's science. Look, science is all the science. We just have sex like normal people. Remember when we used to take nerds and hang them by their underpants on top of flagpoles? We don't do that anymore, and it shows.
It kind of reminds me of like, did you see 21 Jump Street,
I did see a long time ago.
where it's
What's with
like
the yeah.
it was the opposite?
Yeah, we need to start hanging nerds again for like the people who came up with this. They need to be hung by a flagpole, by their underpants on a flagpole. That's the only way we're getting out of this.
Yeah. Is this a like Israeli company that's doing this? Or is it concept by Hashem Al-Gahili? 'Cause it's definitely
No, that's an
Jewish.
Islamic guy with it, and that's no. It's Hashim Al Galili, but it's not.
Oh,
That's not a
okay.
Jewish thing. Yeah, you're reading it wrong.
Okay.
But no, I think this is an American thing. But it's like so clinical, so scientific. It's
Very
like in
dystopian.
yeah, very dystopian. You know how in The Big Bang Theory, there was I only know I never watched The Big Bang Theory. I only watch clips of it because I'll surf through Facebook and I'll see a clip. And there was a clip where what was her name? Penny is talking to Sheldon about how Amy Sheldon's girlfriend is gonna eventually want to have um, marital relations, right? And Sheldon goes, I'm aware of how people typically reproduce. It's like I'm going to have a baby with her clinically in a lab somewhere with people. It's like, and
Yeah.
eventually, but that's the joke is that Sheldon is such an autistic person that he's bothered by like the messiness of human relationships to the point where he wants to produce a baby in a test tube. And the whole point of the show is him learning to be more human because he's like this autistic robot guy, right? So they're
Yeah, he's
like,
more logical, less emotional.
right. But I think this is like, I think this is kind of like a demonstration of the limits of logic. Like, yeah, maybe you can logically try to figure out why we should have babies grow in womb factories. But I think that this is like, I think this demonstrates more that we shouldn't do that.
I think you can take certain aspects of this and it can be very good and healthy in terms of helping people helping people get pregnant who are having difficulties getting pregnant. Um,
Right.
and also like in terms of the genetic manipulation, I wouldn't say like, give them like extra like protein for their muscles so they could like run a marathon with no problems. Saying like, genetic diseases or, just stuff like that where it's like people who actually like need it. That I feel like it would
Well,
be
that's
this
the
would be good
thing. Well, that's
for.
the thing. I
Like I said,
remember
certain
when.
aspects of it, not like all.
Well,
Um,
that's the thing. I remember. I remember. I'm old enough to remember when. What was it called? I think Iceland. They were bragging about how they don't have kids with Down syndrome in
wow.
in their country, right? And but it's not because the Icelands they don't have the capability of producing a child with an extra 20. What was it? The 21st chromosome. They have a third one
It's
of.
20, I think it's 26.
No, I
It's
think no,
it's
no,
one
no,
extra
no.
chromosome.
Humans have 23 chromosomes, and because
Um,
each chromosome is double, they have 46, right?
it's
So they have two
46.
first chromosome. They have a third 21st chromosome, if I recall correctly.
It's 20. Normally, each cell in a human body has 23 pairs of chromosomes, 46 total chromosomes. Half come from the mother and the other half come from the father. So yeah, but it's usually one extra chromosome. So it's
Yeah,
like
no, they usually have
47.
an extra 20. Yeah, they have an extra 21st chromosome,
Yeah.
right? So, but it's not good to like. But they used to have those. But then in Iceland, I think it was Iceland, they decided to just abort all the babies with Down syndrome, right?
Uh-huh.
And then they don't have Down syndrome anymore. Um, I actually don't think that's a good thing. I think it's good for people to for us to have like these, kind of people who have these deficiencies or these defects or whatever it is. It humanizes us. Like it reminds us, oh, we're not perfect. Some of us are not born perfectly. We don't need to constantly be eliminating everything. We don't need like a pure Aryan race, right? Like, you know what I mean? And the fact that we have this ability means that, yeah, eventually there's going to be someone who's going to pay enough money and some unscrupulous doctor will do genetic editing on some baby and make him the smartest, most athletic, most good looking baby on the planet, right? We're going to see that. That's a reality. So the
Yeah.
only way out of this is to ban this kind of things.
Like I said, I wouldn't necessarily ban it. I would just like they already have certain things that they already do.
So we
Like they
shouldn't do
already
those
do
things.
genetically manipulate certain genes in babies, like I said, for genetic diseases, which I think is an amazing thing.
Right, but I know that in Jewish circles, what they do is they do genetic testing on the parents beforehand, and they don't let certain parents get married. Which that
You're
I think
right.
is more ethical. That I think is more ethical because you're not getting science involved.
I mean, you are, but you're giving
Before,
them a
way
choice.
before you're meddling with a life. Way before you're meddling with a life.
Yeah. So, like for example, I'm a carrier of two diseases.
Wait, Rhodey, you're a carrier of two genetic diseases?
Yeah. Surprise. Yeah, I did some testing. So,
Oh, you really want to get married.
um, I mean, that would be nice. I mean, also just like curious also.
Oh,
I just find
really?
it interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. I
but
never tested myself for all these things. I don't see any particular reason to test right now. But
well,
yeah, no, that's crazy. I don't know. This seems wrong to me to do this, and I think in a world where we're already having trouble pairing up men and women, the last thing we want now is to have this kind of like, oh, I can have a baby now and I don't need to get married and I don't need to get married and I don't need to have kids and I could just be 50 and when I decide to have children I'll just pay for a baby. That like we can't have that. We need women and men getting married for their own sake and having babies at a normal age when people are designed to have children. And this cannot be an option. This
yeah,
needs to not be an option. We need to weed these rich celebrities who think that they can just have go to all these parties and waste their youth, and then then we have to pay for them, and our kids have to support them in the I don't know whether it's private care or public care, whatever it is. We need to get rid of these people because these people are bad people. We need people to know you have kids when in your 20s and in your early 30s, and then you raise them, and then they turn out to be good people, and then that's your retirement plan. And this throws any pretense of that out the window, ignoring the fact that it's total dystopian
Well, most of it
nonsense.
we already do. The only difference between this and what we do today is that they have an artificial womb. Like for example, that we already have is IVF, like where you like
IVF,
yeah, we already have
right?
that. We already have genetic manipulation for diseases. So the only difference is the artificial womb part. So
Yeah, but what we need to do is, but at least when, first of all, I think people don't actually know that many times IVF doesn't work anyways, and that when people try to freeze their eggs end up dying in any case. Like it doesn't work. Um,
mhm.
so like it doesn't matter. But also on top of that, there is the reality of uh there is the reality of when we don't have this, just like make an artificial womb, people get naturally punished for ignoring their biological directive. Here there's no even pretense. A 70-year-old woman typically cannot have kids even if she's has a baby implanted in her, right? It's just she's just incapable of having children. Her body can't handle it, right? Because that's not what 70-year-olds are supposed to be doing, right? But with this, it's like if a woman decides she wants a kid at 70, it's like, okay, well, what's stopping her? Nothing's
Yeah.
stopping her, actually. But whatever. This was the shocking episode, I think, and I don't know what else to say, honestly. But hopefully, all these shocking things will kind of go away one day. And in the meantime, if you're having trouble struggling with it, it is a dark day in December. So just remember to light your Hanukkah candles and get lit.
Get lit.
I'm ashamed that I made that joke. I'm so ashamed. No,
uh,
in all serious no, in all seriousness rather. What am I saying? I don't speak the English language anymore. Um, we do hope that the lights of the menorah will light up your winter.
Amen.
All right. So let's get the show on the road. So thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Right Side of the Compass podcast. We hope you enjoyed. You can help us out by liking the video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. In addition, you can hit the notification bell to be notified of our latest uploads. If you want to reach out to us, you can comment on the YouTube comment section, or you can reach out to me at Luke RSOTC on Twitter, or you can reach out to us on Instagram at the Right Side of the Compass. Slide into our DMs, and we will answer you. We hope you had a good time, and we look forward to seeing you next week.